Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to Nine Nar Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book. On Grand Strategy by historian John Lewis Gaddis explores how leaders, states, and movements align big ambitions with real-world limits. Drawing on examples from antiquity through modern times, Gaddis treats grand strategy as a practical discipline rather than a rigid formula. The book connects the art of choosing goals with the craft of matching means to ends, while accounting for uncertainty, rival interests, and moral constraints. It also highlights the tension between vision and flexibility. Leaders need a clear direction, but they must adapt when conditions shift. Gaddis writes for readers interested in history, statecraft, and decision-making, using vivid case studies to show how strategic judgment is formed. Instead of focusing only on battles or policy memos, he emphasizes time horizons, priorities, trade-offs, and the ability to learn. The result is a guided tour of strategic thinking that aims to be useful well beyond the realm of war. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, grand strategy as the alignment of ends, ways, and means. A central theme is that grand strategy is not simply military planning or geopolitical theory, but the ongoing alignment of what you want, how you plan to get it, and what resources and constraints you actually have. Gaddis frames strategy as a discipline of proportion. Ambitions that exceed capabilities invite overreach, while capabilities without purposeful aims drift into wasted effort. The book uses historical episodes to show that durable success comes from defining priorities, sequencing actions, and avoiding the temptation to treat every problem as equally urgent. This approach makes grand strategy relevant to governments and organizations alike. It is about making choices under scarcity, clarifying what must be protected, and deciding what can be sacrificed. The reader is pushed to think in portfolios rather than single moves, weighing opportunity costs and second-order effects. Another emphasis is the importance of coherence over time. Because circumstances change, strategies must be continually reassessed, but they cannot be endlessly improvised. The lesson is to combine a stable direction with adjustable tactics so that daily decisions accumulate toward a larger purpose rather than canceling each other out. Secondly, the balance between determination and adaptability. Gaddis repeatedly returns to the problem of rigidity. Leaders who cling to a preferred plan can become blind to new information, yet leaders who constantly pivot can lose credibility and momentum. The book presents grand strategy as a form of disciplined flexibility. A strategist must be able to commit, endure, and impose costs when necessary, but also recognize when a plan is failing and when a revised approach will better serve the underlying objective. Historical case studies illustrate how changing conditions can invalidate assumptions about allies, domestic support, technology, or the adversary's intentions. In this sense, adaptability is not indecision. It is a method for preserving the core aim while altering the route. The reader is encouraged to treat feedback as an asset, to seek disconfirming signals, and to distinguish between what is essential and what is merely customary. The book also highlights the role of timing. Patience can be strategic when it allows resources to accumulate or opponents to reveal themselves, while speed can matter when windows of opportunity are brief. The broader takeaway is that effective leaders develop habits of learning without losing the will to act. Thirdly, seeing the whole board, perspective, scale, and time horizons. Another major topic is the need for perspective. Grand strategy requires the ability to zoom out from immediate pressures and see how multiple arenas interact, including politics, economics, diplomacy, legitimacy, and culture. Gaddis shows how leaders who master scale can avoid being trapped by the crisis of the day. They consider how actions taken for short-term advantage can create long-term vulnerabilities, and how long-term objectives can be advanced through incremental gains. Time becomes a strategic resource. Extending it can reduce risk and broaden options, while compressing it can force adversaries into mistakes. The book also emphasizes that perspective involves empathy and imagination, the capacity to anticipate how others perceive threats and opportunities. This does not mean agreement with opponents, but it does mean understanding how they frame costs and benefits. By linking perspective with historical thinking, Gaddis suggests that reading widely across eras helps strategists recognize patterns, such as the recurring dangers of hubris, the temptations of easy victories, and the ways coalitions form and fracture. For readers, the practical lesson is to cultivate strategic distance through reflection, scenario planning, and a deliberate separation between urgent noise and consequential signals. Fourthly, power, legitimacy, and the moral dimension of strategy. Gaddis treats legitimacy as a core strategic asset, not a decorative ideal. Even when power is substantial, strategies that lack a persuasive moral or legal basis often face resistance, coalition breakdown, or domestic backlash. The book explores how successful leaders connect means to ends in ways that others can accept, or at least tolerate. This involves restraint, clear communication, and attention to proportionality, because excessive methods can sabotage the political objectives they are meant to secure. Grand strategy, therefore, includes narrative and persuasion. Leaders must explain why sacrifices are necessary and why alternatives are worse. The moral dimension also shapes limits. A strategist who ignores ethical boundaries may gain short-term leverage, but can create long-term costs in reputation, internal cohesion, and future bargaining power. Gaddis's historical lens highlights how legitimacy can multiply strength through alliances and public support, while illegitimacy can isolate even strong actors. For readers, the key insight is that effectiveness and ethics are intertwined more often than they appear. Strategic choices should be evaluated not only for immediate impact, but for how they will be judged by allies, institutions, and one's own constituents, because those judgments affect the freedom to operate over time. Lastly, leadership habits, judgment, humility, and the management of risk. The book also functions as a study of leadership habits that support sound strategy. Gaddis highlights judgment as the ability to make decisions when information is incomplete. Incentives are distorted, and outcomes cannot be guaranteed. Incentives are distorted, and outcomes cannot be guaranteed. This requires humility, because overconfidence can turn uncertainty into reckless commitment. The reader sees how leaders can be trapped by their own reputations, ideologies, or prior investments, and how the best strategists create room to reconsider without appearing rudderless. Risk management appears as an organizing principle. Strategy is not about eliminating risk, but about choosing which risks to accept and which to avoid, and then allocating resources accordingly. This includes building buffers, keeping reserves, diversifying options, and setting boundaries that prevent small failures from becoming catastrophic. Gaddis also underscores the importance of talent selection and delegation. Grand strategy is too broad for any one mind to execute alone, so leaders need teams that challenge assumptions and provide domain expertise. For readers outside government, these lessons translate into organizational leadership and personal planning. Define a few decisive priorities, measure them against real constraints, seek feedback, and design systems that reduce the cost of being wrong. In conclusion, this book is best suited for readers who want to think more clearly about leadership, foreign policy, history, and high-stakes decision-making. Students of international relations will gain a framework for comparing leaders and eras, while executives and entrepreneurs can translate its principles into organizational planning, competitive positioning, and risk control. It can benefit a reader's life by sharpening the habit of matching ambitions to resources, resisting distractions, and choosing trade-offs consciously rather than by default. The historical lens also improves judgment. It trains readers to recognize recurring traps such as overreach, moral blind spots, and the confusion of activity with progress. Compared with many strategy books that focus on tools, jargon, or narrow business analogies, Gaddis offers a broader, more durable education grounded in widely known historical cases and the practical realities of power and legitimacy. The value is not a checklist, but a way of thinking that can be applied across domains, from policy debates to career decisions. It is worth buying because it bridges classical insights with modern challenges in a readable narrative, offering both intellectual depth and actionable perspective without reducing strategy to slogans. If you would like to support John Lewis Gaddis, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.